Booktube, this is Kelly. Thank you so much for watching my channel, Books I'm Not Reading. I am here today to talk about the books that I have reread the most. Now, Gina from Gina Stan Your Books recently did a video like this, and she really encouraged me to do it. She was like, oh, it was so much fun. But my question to Gina in her video, and I will link to it down below, she talks about the books that she's read the most, but she did not say how many times she has read those books. And so that's what I really wanted to get at the heart of, is like, how many actual times have I read something? Now, I am fortunate in the sense that I've been keeping a book journal. It was not always this book. When I got this journal, which usually look a little bit more like that, all the flowers are coming off of it, but I mean, I probably got this in college or shortly after it, but I have been keeping track of the books that I have read since 1996. Keep in mind, folks, just to give you some perspective, I did not have an email address at that time. There was no YouTube. Yeah, there were a lot of things that are becoming outdated and obsolete now that didn't even exist when I started keeping this book journal. But it is a fascinating story of my reading life, and I can tell like different things that were going on. What was I? Oh, there's when I went to Paris, and there's when I lived in Chicago, and I can just see different things, and the things I read in college and that kind of stuff. And it's also quite interesting to look at it from when my channel started. But anyway, so I have gone through this a couple times now to figure out which books I have read the most. And I wanted to give you the numbers of it. I was really concerned that I would have to tell you that the books that I have read more than any other books are the Harry Potter series, which I have in this nice paperback boxed set. But do you know what? I have only read that entire series 3 times. Which I know, like some of you, that might seem like a lot, and some people, that's nothing. But for whatever reason, I went through diligently this book, and yep, I've only read the whole series 3 times. Now, there's a lot of things I've read twice, but those are not the only books that I have read 3 times, and it is a long way from my #1 book, which some of you are going to be able to guess. But I wanted to share the other books that I have read 3 times. So, the very first book I ever showed on my Booktube channel is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. And yes, I am deeply attached to this cover. This is the first book actually in the book journal. And yes, so I read this in 1996, in 2005, and in 2022. The next one is, again, a book that you're not going to be terribly surprised about this, but I have read A Tree Grows in Brooklyn 3 times. I didn't write down all the years, I don't think, on this one, but the last time I read it was in 2020. I read all 4 of Betty Smith's novels in 2020, and I can leave a link to the video about that down below as well. But I love this book. Such a great book. I recommend it to everyone. This is just a delightful thing. Another book that makes an appearance in the book journal very early that I've read 3 times is The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. Now, I read this twice my senior year of high school, and then, I mean, within the first 6 months of starting my Booktube channel, I did kind of a read-along, which was sort of the first buddy read essentially I did with Joe Smith, because my channel was still so small, like to do a read along, it's maybe a bit of a stretch. Like I said, it kind of turned into more of a buddy read than a read along. But I think I made some videos about this. I don't know if they're worth linking to or not. They're so old. But anyway, so a lot of people in America hate the Scarlet Letter because they read it in high school and they did not have a very good English teacher. I was fortunate enough to have an amazing English teacher my senior year of high school. And that's why I read The Scarlet Letter twice that year. So that's another book I have read 3 times. So the next book I have read, again, 3 times. And I believe I read it, I'm having a hard time reading my handwriting. 2000, 2006, and I think 2017 was the last time I read this. And I kind of am like, maybe it's time to, maybe I should reread it this again. This is Tim O'Brien's The Things They Carried. Now, I read the first chapter of this book when I was in college, and I thought that it was just a short story. I read it for a creative writing class, and I had no idea. And then, anyway, I got a little bit older, and someone was like, no, Kelly, like, there's a whole book. There's a whole book. And I was so ecstatic. Like, I begged that person to let me borrow their copy of the book, and I read it immediately. And this is, some people feel like this is like almost like a short story collection, but yeah, so I don't feel that way about The Things They Carried. I feel like it does work as a cohesive novel. This book was completely robbed from winning the Pulitzer Prize. Those of you who love Updike, I know you're out there, but yeah, this one of John Updike's novels won the Pulitzer Prize the year this came out. But it's about the Vietnam War. There's chapters that take place in Vietnam and take place in the United States. But I love this book so much. So I might need to reread this next year. Okay. And then the last book that I've read 3 times, which kind of surprised me a little bit, but I do remember the first time I read it, I was laughing so hard I was crying. And that is Nick Hornby's The Polysyllabic Spree. Now, this is the first in a series of 4 books. They're all his essays about books from The Believer magazine. And one of the things I love about these books is that he lists at the beginning of each essay what he's read and also the books that he's bought. So in some ways, every essay is like a haul video, but he usually, dives deeper into some of the books that he's read. But I have read I read it in 2006, 2008, and then again, I read it in 2022. But I love these books, and they're just all about books. They're fantastic. There is a collection of all 4 of them, plus a few extra essays that's called 10 Years in the Tub. But I prefer, these little editions have, French flaps, which I like, and they're little, and I don't know, I think they were just beautiful. I didn't feel like I needed to own the very last few essays. I did read them, so I feel like I can say I've read 10 Years in the Tub. But anyway, so yeah, I've read this 3 times, which was a little surprising. The number 1 book, which I think one of you actually pointed out to me in a comment not too long ago, is the book that I've read the most. But I have a number. I have a number for you. So I have read A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens 13 times. So I read it in 2001, 2004, 2009, 2012, and 2013. And then starting in 2016, I've read it every year. And of course, I plan on reading it this year as well. We also have this other beautiful edition of it that has some of his other stories in it. Yeah, so, and going through my book journal, I just felt really good that I've read such an array of things, at least for me. I'm surprised by the things I've read, and there were times where it was just what I would read. I'd read a Betsy Tacy book. I read the Betsy Tacy books twice, and then I would the next book in the book journal would be something by Norman Mailer. So. I mean, and there's a whole slew of middle grade and YA books in here when I was working for Barnes and Noble, because it was my job to encourage teachers and librarians to buy books. And so and it's much easier, I've discovered, to sell a book that you've actually read rather than just be like, well, I know lots of people like this book. But anyway, so there's a lot about me within this little book. If you don't keep a book journal, I mean, as much as great as Goodreads was, and again, when I started this, there was no Goodreads, but as great as Goodreads is, like, it is interesting to just be able to collectively look at a whole year just on a couple of pages. So if you don't keep a book journal, I would recommend that. Yeah, I would love to know, what books have you read the most, and do you know how many times you've read them? What do you think of? Are you surprised at all about the books that I've read the most? Those of you who've been watching my channel from the beginning, I'm guessing not. But again, I would love to hear from you. I'd love to know what you have read the most, and if you want to do this video yourself, I mean, it's not a tag video, but feel free to dive into your reading history and share with the rest of us, what books have you gone back to again? And again, I was hesitant to do that because I was afraid it was going to be Harry Potter, but I was pleasantly surprised. Booktube, I look forward to engaging with you in the comment section. If you don't feel comfortable leaving a comment, as always, you can leave an emoji, or you can give this video a thumbs up, which does help my channel. So thank you for that. And Booktube, remember to be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and I'll be back soon with another bookish video.